All right, so if everybody would like to go over to on mute, I'd like to hand over to Murilo to give us our Sprite talk tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, planning to talk about contract testing. Did you all already touch that? Already did something, automate something like that before? Did you all? No, never? Okay. Then let me start sharing here so I can present that for you guys. You all are seeing yourselves, I hope.
Yep. Yes, that's working, yes.
Here it is. So let me do that. But yeah, put your guys in the other screen so I can see your guys' faces when I'm talking. Whoop. Okay, peeps. Automated contract testing. We're increasing the API testing that we already have. It's pretty simple. We need a little bit more to maintainability in that, but we just increase a lot the coverage, doing a few small adjustments in the automation that we can use. So here is a brief introduction for API testing. So we can imagine API as a bridge. We do have endpoints that's where we want to send our stuffs. We're gonna have the trucks that are basically the request being made. And for example, the trucks I can, for example, send something differently. I'm an endpoint that I want to have information about the profile. I can send different requests, not having all the information that I need to fulfill my profile page, or to do other stuff, other process that we can have in the backend. And well, when we receive this misinformation, we can introduce bugs. We can show more than we expected to. We can bring more vulnerability for the systems. So if we do a contract testing, we can cover all that. Here is a basic example, like I was saying. So this is the spriteTalk page. I just blocked one of the URLs, one of the domains that we have. And because of this, if you see, the page just didn't have enough information to fulfill the whole page. I do have here increase testing efficiency, but I don't have the hand, I don't have the images, I don't have all the infos that I needed. And when an API have a problem to pass this information, your front end, when it's collecting that, he like, okay, what the fuck should I do? I don't know. I don't have enough information. What should I show you? So this is a bug that we can introduce. And why automate contract testing? So imagine a way for you guys to increase a lot the coverage that we have for the API, like I was saying. We're gonna test not only if I'm receiving a 200, if I'm receiving a 400, not only if I have this key, we are testing the entire response. This is good in a way because it's really sensitive. So this brings a lot of info, but can be really flaky. We can have, for example, you're working in a sprint and people start using mocks, and you go there, you do a contract testing, the guys change the mock, and now you have no idea, now your testing are failing, and you say, no, we cannot deliver that. But actually we could. It was the test, it was not updated. So the same way that is really sensitive is gonna bring a lot of information for us, we need to take care, like I don't want to have this in all the endpoints. I want to have that on the checkout, in payments, any kind of payments endpoints, profiles, for example, because we're messing with people information. So a photo, all that kind of stuff, those endpoints, we do want to have contract testing there. And yeah, like I'm saying here, not for all the endpoints, because we're gonna increase a little bit more the maintainability to have these scenarios, and they often break. So they are more used to bring information to help us with the next decision that we want to make. About APIs, are we all on the same page? Do we know like responses, what we're gonna receive? Nice, okay. How it works, basically, we have a schema and we do have the response. We're gonna basically do a comparison. So I have here in my response, I have a kind, I have, oh shit. Oh, coming back. I have this, in this response, I have this key, it's the kind one. If you see it's a string, I have ID token, refresh token, I have all these keys here, they all are strings, and here the schema that I'm gonna use. So I'm saying that, hey, this response, it needs to be an object. I can abstract this. I can just use the schema without saying that, hey, I want an object. I can reduce that. But I can tell that I want to have all these properties. So I want to have the kind, I want to have the ID token, and I want the kind to be an integer. I want the ID token to be a string. This scenario, for example, is going to fail because we have a string here in kind, and we are expecting the kind to be integer. So when we are doing the contract testing here, this scenario is going to fail. So contract testing is not something only for Ruby. It's not something only for Cypress. We can do is for JavaScript. We can do for Cypress. We can do for Ruby. We can do with Java. We can do whatever the language we wanted. I have this small repository here. I'm gonna send for you guys. So, seeing here right now. I hope you all curse me because there's no README there. So, but you guys at least have a repository with all the codes that you guys need, something working. So it's easier if you guys want to replicate that in any place. We're going to use Ruby because, hey, I like Ruby. I'm a mainly Rubyist. And JSON schema is one of the things that I found that work really well to do contract testing. And just to explain a little bit before, I'm gonna show you guys the implementation here, but then I'm gonna share my screen with the terminal, with the project, so we're gonna pass by everything. It's just so you guys have a brief idea and you can come up with questions and all that kind of stuff. But basically, this is the code implementation. This is what I want for JSON schema to be in my repository, to be in my project, to be used. So basically, I'm requiring JSON schema here. I'm just calling the class against the schema validator. And the method that's responsible to do this comparison is the JSON validator validate. It's not a method, but this is the guy that will do the comparison for us. Here is just me trying to handle a little bit the error to be more readable for the developers, to be more readable for the rest of the team. So this is part of the implementation. I'm gonna show that we can use much less and do the same if you don't want to handle the errors. Also, another stuff that I really like it that it's not new, but we start using more right now. We do need the schema. We do need the contract. We have a lot of other languages, a lot of other libraries that give this for us, give this capability for us. But you need to create a schema. This can be really shitty work. This can be really troublesome because it can be a lot. You can have a response really huge. You can have a lot of responses. So one approach that we can use is follow the draft. Basically, we have a pattern created. It's called draft. Over there is evolving. So we have draft 1, draft 2, draft 3. Now we are on the draft 7. And this is a pattern to create schemas that we're going to use to do the contract testing. Why this is cool? Why this is something that we can use a lot? Because if you see, we have this website, for example. So we have a lot of other websites. If we are concerned about security, there's a lot of other open projects that you can download and use locally if you want in your machine that's going to generate the schema for you guys. So it's much more easier to maintain that because of that pattern. What I'm going to do here is let me go for JSON. Just get one response here. Just there's the post one, right? Yeah, there's post one. Okay. So this is one of the responses that we have here. I'm just gonna use as an example. So when I put this here, if it's valid, it's gonna create the schema for me in the right. And like I said, there is a lot of other websites, there are a lot of other projects that you can use. So, and having this in place, this is the schema that we're gonna need. Also, I wanted to do this in front of you guys because if you see, we can evolve this more than only expect for the typing. So I can, for example, create a regex here. We can use this for security. If you want in the future, we can say that we only want this kind of response. So we can evolve more. Draft give more capability for us, not only to say the type, but also to say, this is what the kind of text that I want there. This is the pattern that I want there. I don't want to have this info, so we know that we're not passing more than we needed to. So that's why. Okay, so now we have the implementation in place. We generated a schema, and now how do we use this inside the scenario? So before everything, I'm loading the schemas. I'm saying that, hey, create this variable for me, suppose schema. How? Reading this file is a JSON, is the schema that we just generated. You can have this as an object, you can have this as a variable, you can have this as a file. I like to have it as a file because it's easier for people to understand. It's easy for people to, where is my schema? Where should I update it? It's much more easy for them. And I created one more that's the invalid post schema, doing the exactly same. So I'm loading a file, I'm doing the parse, and I'm tributing this for invalid post schema. This is what I need to do before, so my code knows that, okay, I do have these variables containing the schemas. Now I have everything that I needed to use in the future. And here is our scenario. So it's just a really simple scenario. I'm gonna check some endpoints over the schema that we have. I'm saving a response using Faraday, and I'm doing a get here. Okay, I know that this is, I think I could do this better, but this is a get. I'm just passing the host base that we have, and I'm interpolating with the path post that we needed. So we have the complete URL that we want to have. I'm saving the response of this as a response, and then now I'm doing just one small testing just to make sure that, okay, this endpoint at least is answering something for me and something that is usable. So, hey, the response is equal to 200. This is pretty simple. Yeah, it is. Okay, now I can move forward. Now, remember this guy, the schema validator. I'm calling him again here. So schema validator, do what for me? Validate. What? Use this schema, being the post schema that I passed in before, and this is the body. The body being the response over the request that I made. A few considerations. I'm gonna run later the project, so you guys are gonna see this running, and we can have more time to question and everything. But it's really good to use in critical. It's the same that I said that I told before. It's really good to use in some critical endpoints, but you don't want to have this everywhere. Otherwise, you're just gonna have your testing failing a lot. They are really sensible, so you need to take care which endpoint you're gonna put test. We're gonna have this kind of test. It's really something that the developers really like when we do. It's because they have a lot of information. So, for example, if you're working in a company using a shift left, you're gonna have a really fast feedback to pass through developers, much easier for them to understand, hey, okay, I'm passing more than I should, or I'm missing this kind of key in this endpoint. This is really helpful for them. But again, I'm touching this point a lot of times because, yeah, they're really sensitive, so choose with care where we're gonna use that. Okay. Questions? No, I'm gonna come back and go for the repo, and then we can come back for the questions. Where is here? Okay, guys, here's the code. Here's the repository that I just sent you out there. It's pretty simple. I didn't use Cucumber. I didn't use a lot that I could. I'm just using RSpec, basic RSpec. I just want it to be as simple as possible so you guys can focus only on the schema validation, only on the contract testing. Here are the schemas that we created using the website. If you see, I stripped out a little bit the keys because I was more focusing on the typing that I want to show here. So I'm expecting the response to be array. The default shouldn't contain anymore. The items that I want to be there. The items should be object. It's required to have user ID, title, body. And the rest you guys already saw into the few slides ahead that we have. So basically the type that I wanted and the pattern. This pattern is pretty, it's just checking if there's something there. So there's no sensitivity here in this pattern, but I want to have this here because just to remember that, yeah, we can put regex here. So we can increase even more. This is an invalid one. This is the valid one. So if you see the type here is integer, the invalid one, the type is a string. So when I run this scenario, you guys are gonna see that one should pass and one should fail. About the request, to make it clear, where it was here, data host base, data pets post, what the fuck, what is that? Have all this info here that I YAML, just because it's easier for us to maintain. It's a place that everyone knows where it is. It's much more simple. It's a property file that a lot of developers use it as well. So it's something easier to put in a place. So when I'm saying host base, I'm saying JSON placeholder. When I'm saying pet post, I'm saying JSON placeholder type code / post. So this is how I'm creating my URL. Going for the scenario, it's the same. It's a require relative because of the helper that I created to handle a little bit the error messages. I'm using RSpec, like I said, so it's really straightforward, like describing a scenario, posts endpoints. I'm loading, like I showed before, the schemas that I'm gonna use. I'm doing 2 scenarios here. One you guys already know is the one that I used in the presentation. The second one is a positive one, so this guy should work. And basically, schema validator, validate for me what, using what, my schema, which schema, invalid post schema. Okay, but over what? Over a body, which body? The response that I had in my request. So this is basically what he's doing. And yeah, pretty much the code, that's it. It's not that hard, but let me run this here. You guys gonna switch RSpec, so RSpec. Run for me a schema spec. So here are the log from the tests that we made. If you see, we have the 2 scenarios here. The first one failed. The second one ran smoothly. The first one, error, unable to infer file line from backtrace. Okay, this error is not that good as can be, but schema invalid attribute exception. So remember that we handle a little bit the error. Yeah, so I did find a invalid attribute in those keys that I put in the schema. And which attribute it was, user ID. So this information is enough for the developer, for example, to go fix that, or to have enough information to know where he need to fix, or where we need to aim. And yeah. People, I'm really used it to teach personally, not online. I think that I even rush it, not a little, a lot. So questions, please, yeah.
Is this designed to be used with mocks, or is it really like production endpoints, test endpoints?
I don't even see a reason choosing mocks.
When the system that is being developed is, for instance, like we've used mocks before in the past at the request of a client, when one party is building the API, another party is building the service behind it, and they're just trying to be able to work in parallel as much as they can, because otherwise you've got to work for, you have to wait for some sort of service at the back end to be developed that you can then plug your API into. So that would be the only reason why. But I suspect, in answering my own question, yes, you could, right? But what would be the value in it?
Yeah, it will be end up testing the mock. You will end up just making sure that, okay, I'm gonna receive this the way that I was expecting, so okay, I can move forward with my front end, for example.
Yeah,
By those reasons, but I want to test the mock. I don't want to test the mock, I want to test the application.
No, absolutely, for sure. But at least you could prove that if you're using a mock, that you have tests ready when the back-end service is ready, so you can start testing immediately without having a lag between the service being developed and then the tests having to be developed.
It's a good input. Nice.
Yeah.
Right. So Murilo, thanks for the talk. Really liked it. I have a question. So I know there are a few frameworks that can do the heavy lifting for you. For example, Dread, where you can basically import your Swagger specs, and then it's gonna try and make tests out of that, and also with Postman, you can validate against a schema. Is that something you've used before as well? And would you advise using that or based on the
Yeah, it cut it on the end, but I already use it. Like I said, for a few endpoints, like we working in a bank, we work in e-commerce. We want to make sure that the checkout endpoints are really secure. We want to make sure that we are receiving not more than we should. And I already used it before. Those tools that you passed me, I didn't. I'm gonna be really honest. A lot of the places where I passed it, I asked for a collection or I asked for a postman. They all never work on the first. I always need to get collections from other guys. I always needed to get the environments for other people. I not even use Postman, to be really honest. I use Burp. I start Burp, keep navigating, and now I have all the endpoints that I needed, and then I choose which one I'm going to do the test. That's how I use nowadays. And yeah, I think that's all. I think that summarizes.
check? All right, cool. Thanks.
Thanks, Murilo. That's very good. Any more questions for Murilo?